When my ex-husband's new bride called my daughter's someone else's mistake on social media, I thought staying silent was the mature thing to do. I was wrong. Because my 12-year-old daughter had been recording everything. My name is Cassandra, but everyone calls me Cass. I'm 34, work as a graphic designer from my home office, and I've been raising my daughter Brielle as a single mom for the past 2 years. Brielle is 12, brilliant beyond her years, and has these expressive brown eyes that seem to catch everything happening around her. She's the kind of kid who remembers every detail of a conversation and asks questions that make adults uncomfortable because they're so insightful. My ex-husband Marcus is 36, works in sales, and honestly, he's the type of guy who looks good on paper, but struggles with the day-to-day reality of being a father. He sees Brielle every other weekend, which sounds like joint custody until you realize that means I handle everything else. School pickup, doctor appointments, homework meltdowns, friendship drama, late-night fever watches, all of it. Then there's Valentina. She's 28, has perfectly highlighted blonde hair, and runs a lifestyle Instagram account with about 50,000 followers. She married Marcus 6 months ago after what I can only describe as a whirlwind romance that started while he was still married to me. Valentina posts about everything from her morning smoothie routine to her skincare regimen, but her favorite content recently has been playing the devoted stepmother to my daughter. The thing about Valentina is that she's mastered the art of looking like the perfect bonus mom online. She posts photos of herself and Brielle baking cookies, doing craft projects, having heart-to-heart conversations on the porch swing. Every caption talks about the joys and challenges of blended family life, how much she loves Brielle, how grateful she is to be part of her journey. Her followers eat it up. They comment things like, "You're such an angel for loving that little girl, and not all heroes wear capes, and Brielle is so lucky to have you." What those followers don't see is that Brielle comes home from weekend visits quieter than she used to be. She's always been an observant kid, but lately she watches me with this careful expression, like she's trying to figure out if it's safe to tell me something. When I ask about her time with Dad and Valentina, she gives me these perfectly neutral responses that sound almost rehearsed. "It was fine, Mom. We had fun. Valentina made pancakes." I've tried to be the bigger person through all of this. I don't comment on Valentina's posts, even though seeing my daughter used as content for someone else's social media success makes my stomach turn. I don't correct the narrative when people assume Valentina is doing the heavy lifting of raising Brielle. I smile and nod when other parents at school tell me how wonderful it must be to have such an involved stepmother helping out. I've convinced myself that keeping the peace is what's best for Brielle, that rising above the drama is the mature, responsible choice. But on that Tuesday morning in March, when I opened Instagram and saw that post, everything changed. The photo showed Valentina and Brielle in the kitchen, both wearing matching aprons, flour dusting their cheeks as they smiled at the camera. It looked like a scene from a family magazine. The caption read, "Raising someone else's mistake. I must be a saint hashtag, stepmomlife hashtag, blessed hashtag, patience." My hands actually shook as I read those words. Someone else's mistake. She was talking about my daughter, my brilliant, sensitive, incredible daughter, who lights up my entire world. Valentina had just called her a mistake in front of 50,000 people and positioned herself as a saint for tolerating her existence. Within hours, the post had thousands of likes and hundreds of comments. People were praising Valentina for her selflessness, her big heart, her patience. They were calling her an inspiration, a role model, a woman of faith. And with every notification that popped up on my phone, I felt this burning rage building in my chest. My sister Freya called me within 20 minutes of the post going live. "Cass, please tell me you saw this. Please tell me you're going to say something." My best friend from college sent me screenshots with fire emojis. My mother called and left a voicemail that was just her breathing heavily into the phone before hanging up. But I didn't respond. I told myself I was being the bigger person. I told myself that engaging would only create more drama, more hurt for Brielle. I told myself that people would see through Valentina's words eventually, that the truth would come out on its own. I had no idea that my 12-year-old daughter had already started collecting evidence that would change everything. The truth is, I never planned to be a single mother. 3 years ago, I was married to Marcus, living in our suburban house with the white picket fence, believing we were building the perfect life for our family. I worked part-time then, mostly freelance graphic design projects that I could squeeze in between school pickups and soccer practices. Marcus had his sales job, steady income, and we had our routines. Weekend pancakes, family movie nights, annual vacations to the same lake house his parents rented every summer. But perfect lives have a way of cracking when you're not looking. The affair started as what Marcus called just friendship with a client. Valentina was launching her lifestyle brand and needed someone to handle her social media advertising. She was young, ambitious, and had this way of making Marcus feel like he was the most important person in the room. By the time I found the text messages, they'd been meeting for coffee, lunch, and eventually much more for 6 months. The divorce was finalized 2 years ago, and I won't lie, it nearly broke me. Not just emotionally, but practically. Suddenly, I was responsible for 100% of Brielle's daily needs while trying to build my freelance business into something that could actually pay our bills. I moved us into a smaller house closer to Brielle's school, converted the spare bedroom into my office, and learned to juggle client deadlines with parent-teacher conferences. Marcus pays child support, which covers about half of what it actually costs to raise a child. He sees Brielle every other weekend, Friday evening to Sunday afternoon, and acts like those 48 hours make him an equal partner in parenting. He's the fun dad who takes her to movies and lets her stay up late eating ice cream. I'm the one who handles the math homework meltdowns, the friendship drama, the growing pains conversations that 12-year-old girls need to have with someone who really listens. Brielle handled the divorce better than I expected, or at least that's what I thought at the time. She's always been mature for her age, the kind of kid who notices when adults are struggling and tries to make things easier. She stopped asking for expensive things, started doing her own laundry without being asked, and never complained when I had to work late to meet a deadline. Looking back, I realized she was protecting me the same way I was trying to protect her. When Marcus announced he was marrying Valentina, Brielle's reaction was carefully neutral. "That's nice, Mom. I hope they're happy." She was 10 then, and I was so proud of her grace under pressure. I told myself that her calm acceptance meant she was adjusting well to our new reality. Valentina entered our lives like a hurricane, wrapped in designer athleisure. She had opinions about everything from Brielle's diet to her extracurricular activities, to the clothes I sent her to their house wearing. She started a private Instagram account specifically for family moments and began documenting every interaction with Brielle like she was conducting a social experiment in step-parenting excellence. The posts started small, photos of Brielle's artwork hanging on their refrigerator with captions about how proud she was of her bonus daughter, pictures of them grocery shopping together with long paragraphs about the importance of involving children in meal planning. Every mundane moment became content. Every interaction became proof of Valentina's commitment to blended family success. What bothered me most wasn't the posts themselves, but how they painted a picture that wasn't quite true. Valentina would post about teaching Brielle to braid friendship bracelets, but I knew Brielle had learned that skill at summer camp the year before. She'd share photos of them cooking together and talk about passing down family recipes, but those were recipes I'd taught Brielle first. It was like watching someone else get credit for raising my daughter. The comments section became a fan club for Valentina's parenting. Followers praised her patience, her creativity, her natural maternal instincts. They called her an inspiration to other stepmothers, a woman who proved that love doesn't require blood relation. The more popular her posts became, the more elaborate her activities with Brielle grew. Weekend craft projects turned into Pinterest-worthy room makeovers. Simple dinners became elaborate themed cooking sessions. Meanwhile, Brielle was changing in ways I couldn't quite pinpoint. She became more careful with her words, especially when talking about her weekends with Dad and Valentina. She started asking permission for things she'd never needed permission for before, like choosing her own outfit or deciding what to have for snack. She'd come home from visits and immediately retreat to her room, claiming she needed to rest, but really just seeming like she needed space to decompress. I told myself these changes were normal adjustment period behaviors. Divorce is hard on kids, and learning to navigate two different households with different rules takes time. I focused on making our home a place where Brielle felt safe to be herself, where she could mess up without judgment and succeed without pressure to perform. But deep down, I was starting to worry that my efforts to keep the peace were allowing something unhealthy to grow in the silence. The morning everything changed started like any other Tuesday. I was in my home office working on a logo design for a local bakery when my phone buzzed with a text from my sister Freya. Instead of words, she'd sent me a screenshot with 5 fire emojis and the message, "Please tell me you've seen this." The image showed Valentina and Brielle in what I recognized as Marcus's kitchen, both wearing matching floral aprons. They were covered in flour, laughing at the camera, with a tray of chocolate chip cookies cooling on the counter behind them. It looked like a scene from a family lifestyle magazine, but it was the caption that made my blood run cold. Raising someone else's mistake. I must be a saint, hashtag. Stepmom life, hashtag. Blessed, hashtag. Patience. I read it 3 times before the words actually sank in. Someone else's mistake. She was talking about my daughter, my brilliant, kind, sensitive daughter who had never been anything close to a mistake. Brielle was the most intentional thing Marcus and I had ever created together, planned for and celebrated and loved from the moment we knew she existed. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the comments. Hundreds of them, all praising Valentina for her selflessness. "You're such an angel for loving someone else's child like your own. Not all heroes wear capes, some wear aprons. That little girl is so lucky to have you stepping up where her real mom fell short. You're literally saving that child's life by showing her what real love looks like." Each comment felt like a physical blow. These strangers thought I had failed my daughter, that Valentina was somehow rescuing Brielle from my inadequate parenting. They were applauding her for tolerating my child's existence, for putting up with the burden of having to care about someone else's mistake. Within an hour, the post had 2,000 likes. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications from friends and family who'd seen it. My mother called and left a voicemail that was just her breathing heavily before hanging up. My college roommate sent me direct messages with screenshots, each one accompanied by increasingly angry emojis. My neighbor texted me asking if I was okay because she'd seen the post shared in our local mom's Facebook group. But the worst part was the silence from Marcus. I called him 4 times that morning, and every call went straight to voicemail. I sent him text messages asking if he'd seen what his wife had posted about our daughter. Nothing. Radio silence from the man who was supposed to be co-parenting with me, who was supposed to protect Brielle from exactly this kind of public humiliation. Freya showed up at my house unannounced that afternoon, armed with coffee and barely contained fury. "Cass, you have to respond to this. You can't let her get away with calling Brielle a mistake. Not publicly, not in front of thousands of people." I wanted to fight back. Every instinct I had as a mother was screaming at me to defend my daughter, to set the record straight, to show the world who was really doing the work of raising Brielle. But I also knew that responding would create exactly the kind of drama I'd been trying to avoid. It would turn our private family situation into a public spectacle, with Brielle caught in the middle. If I engage with this, it just makes it worse, I told Freya. Brielle doesn't need to see her parents fighting online. She doesn't need to be the center of some social media war. But even as I said the words, I could feel my resolve cracking. That evening, I watched the post's engagement numbers continue to climb. 5,000 likes, 8,000. Comments pouring in from strangers who thought they understood our family dynamic based on carefully curated Instagram content. Valentina was gaining followers by the hundreds, her personal brand boosted by the viral nature of her inspiring stepmother content. The hardest part was that Brielle was coming home from school that very day, and I had no idea how to handle it. Did I tell her about the post? Did I prepare her for the possibility that her classmates might see it? Did I pretend nothing had happened and hope she never found out? When Brielle walked through the door at 3:30, she looked exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with schoolwork. She dropped her backpack by the door and came straight to me for a hug, something she'd been doing more often lately after particularly difficult days. "Mom, can I ask you something?" she said, her voice smaller than usual. "Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind?" "Why do people think Valentina does more for me than you do?" My heart stopped. She knew. Somehow she'd already seen the post or heard about it from someone at school. The careful buffer I'd tried to create between her and the adult drama had failed, And now my 12-year-old daughter was asking me to explain why a grown woman had called her a mistake in front of the internet. That night, after Brielle went to bed, I lay awake staring at my phone. The post now had 15,000 likes and had been shared to multiple step-parenting Facebook groups. Valentina was being hailed as a hero, a saint, a woman whose patience and love were changing a child's life. And I had said nothing. 3 days passed, and the post kept growing. 20,000 likes, 30,000. Valentina had gained 5,000 new followers, and I watched in horror as parenting blogs started featuring her as an example of grace under pressure in blended families. The comments section had become a shrine to her supposed sainthood, with hundreds of women sharing their own stories of raising difficult stepchildren and praising Valentina for her honesty about the challenges. Marcus finally called me back on Friday morning, but not to apologize. He was furious that I'd allowed people to screenshot the post and share it in other groups. "You need to tell your friends to stop spreading this around," he said, his voice tight with irritation. "Valentina is getting death threats now. People are calling her work." She called our daughter a mistake, Marcus, in front of 50,000 people. She was just being honest about how hard this is for her. You have no idea what it's like to suddenly become responsible for someone else's child. The conversation ended with him hanging up on me, but not before making it clear that he blamed me for not controlling the narrative. According to Marcus, I should have been grateful that Valentina was willing to be involved in Brielle's life at all. That weekend, Brielle was scheduled to stay with them as usual. I watched her pack her overnight bag with the same careful attention she'd been showing lately, like she was preparing for a performance rather than visiting her father. She moved through her room methodically, choosing clothes that wouldn't wrinkle, packing activities that wouldn't make noise, selecting books that wouldn't require adult help. "You know you can bring whatever you want, right?" I asked her. "It's your weekend, too." She looked at me with those perceptive brown eyes. "I know, Mom, I just like to be prepared." When she came home Sunday evening, she was quieter than usual. She did her homework without being asked, took a shower without prompting, and went to bed 30 minutes early. I found her lying in the dark, staring at the ceiling. "How was your weekend, sweetheart?" "Fine." The word came out flat, practiced. "Did you and Dad do anything fun?" We went to the park, and Valentina made us help her film some videos for her Instagram. Something in her tone made me sit down on the edge of her bed. Videos? She wanted to show her followers how we make Sunday morning pancakes together. She made us do it 3 times because the lighting wasn't right. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "How do you feel about being in her videos?" Brielle was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Mom, can I use your phone for a minute? I want to look at something." I handed her my phone, and she navigated straight to Instagram, pulling up Valentina's profile with the ease of someone who'd been monitoring it regularly. She scrolled to the mistake post and held the phone so we could both see it. "I read the comments," she said simply. "Mrs. Patterson's daughter showed me at school. She thought it was funny that someone called me a mistake." My heart shattered. "Brielle, you are not a mistake. You have never been a mistake. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." "I know that, Mom, but I want to tell them that." She was looking at me with an expression I'd never seen before, determined and tired and much older than 12. "I want to comment on the post. I want to tell people what it's really like." Every parenting instinct I had screamed against it. Getting Brielle involved in social media drama seemed like the worst possible solution. But as I looked at my daughter, who had been carrying this burden silently for days, I realized that protecting her from the conflict meant silencing her voice entirely. What would you want to say? The truth, that she doesn't really raise me, that you do everything, and she just takes pictures. I thought about all the advice I'd been given about taking the high road, about keeping Brielle out of adult problems, about maintaining peace for the sake of co-parenting. But my daughter was asking for the chance to defend herself, to correct a narrative that was painting her as a burden and me as an absent mother. "Okay," I said finally, "you can comment, but I want you to think carefully about what you want to say first." She took the phone and typed slowly, considering each word. When she handed it back to me, her comment read, "You don't raise me. You just pose for photos with me. My real mom does everything else." Before I could second-guess the decision, she pressed send. The response was immediate. Within minutes, her comment had dozens of likes, then hundreds. People were replying to her comment, asking questions, demanding answers. I watched the notification count climb and felt a mix of pride and terror. "Brielle, there's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice steady but serious. "I've been recording things. When I'm at Dad's house, I recorded what really happened when we made those cookies." She reached into her backpack and pulled out her phone, the one I'd given her for emergencies. "I have videos, Mom, of how she really acts when the camera isn't rolling for Instagram." Everything changed in that moment. My daughter hadn't just been enduring Valentina's behavior, she'd been documenting it. Brielle's phone sat between us on her bed like a piece of evidence in a courtroom. My hands trembled as I picked it up, knowing that whatever she'd recorded would change everything. The screen showed her camera roll filled with videos dated from the past 3 months, each one labeled with cryptic titles like Sunday Morning and Cookie Day. "I started recording after the second weekend," Brielle explained, her voice matter-of-fact in the way that only children can manage when discussing something devastating. "She acts completely different when Dad's not around, and I knew no one would believe me if I just told them." The first video was from 6 weeks ago. Brielle had propped her phone against a book on the kitchen counter, and the angle captured most of the room. In the footage, Valentina was setting up her ring light and adjusting the camera for what would become one of her spontaneous family moments. But what the Instagram audience never saw was the 10 minutes of preparation beforehand. "Brielle, you need to smile bigger." Valentina's voice came through the phone speaker, sharp and impatient. "This is supposed to look fun, not like you're being tortured. And stop touching your hair. It looks perfect the way I styled it." I watched my daughter obediently arrange her face into the bright smile that had fooled thousands of followers. The transformation was heartbreaking. One moment she looked like a tired kid who wanted to go play outside, and the next she was performing happiness for an audience that would never know the difference. "Can we make real cookies after this?" Brielle asked in the video. "Not just for pictures?" "We don't have time for that," Valentina snapped. "Your father will be home soon, and I need to get at least 3 different shots for my content calendar. Now hold up the mixing bowl and pretend to be excited about measuring flour." The second video was worse. This one was from the morning after the mistake post went viral. Brielle had hidden her phone on the windowsill, and it captured Valentina pacing around the kitchen while talking on her own phone, presumably to a friend or manager. "The engagement numbers are incredible," Valentina said, her voice bright with excitement. "My follower count went up by 8,000 overnight. This authenticity angle is working perfectly. People love the honesty about how hard it is to deal with someone else's kid." She paused, listening to whoever was on the other end of the call. "No, she doesn't know what I posted. Marcus handles all that co-parenting communication stuff. Honestly, it's better this way. The less involved the biological mother is, the more room there is for me to build this stepmother brand." But it was the third video that made my breath catch in my throat. This one was from last weekend, the same day Brielle had come home so quietly. She'd positioned her phone to record the living room, where she was sitting on the couch with a book while Valentina worked on her laptop nearby. "You're being too loud," Valentina said without looking up from her screen. "I'm trying to respond to comments about yesterday's post. Can you go read in your room?" "I'm just turning pages," Brielle said softly. "I'm not making any noise." "Well, it's distracting me, and frankly, I need some space to think. This whole situation with your mother's friends attacking me online is really stressful. I never should have been honest about how difficult this is." When Brielle didn't move immediately, Valentina looked up from her laptop with an expression of pure irritation. "Did you hear what I said? I said go to your room. I'm dealing with a crisis here because people can't handle the truth about blended families." "What truth?" Brielle asked, and I could hear the genuine confusion in her voice. "The truth that taking care of you is hard work that nobody appreciates. The truth that I'm making sacrifices for this family that your mother never has to make. The truth that I deserve credit for stepping up when it would be easier to just let your father handle everything himself." The video showed Brielle closing her book and walking toward the hallway, but not before I caught the expression on her face. She looked devastated, not by the harsh words, but by the confirmation of what she'd probably suspected all along. She wasn't a beloved stepdaughter. She was content for someone else's social media empire. There were 7 more videos, each one revealing the same pattern. Valentina performing maternal love for the camera, then treating Brielle like an inconvenience the moment the performance ended. The footage showed her coaching Brielle on what to say in videos, directing her expressions and gestures like a stage manager. It showed her complaining about having to include Brielle in family activities, about the inconvenience of weekend custody schedules, about how much easier her life would be if Marcus didn't have a daughter. I needed people to see what was really happening, Brielle explained as we watched the final video. When you wouldn't say anything about the post, I realized that grown-ups don't always speak up when they should, so I decided to speak up for myself. She took her phone back and opened her video editing app. I already put them together into one video. I was going to post it as a response to her comment, but I wanted to show you first. The compiled video was devastating. 3 minutes of Valentina's real behavior, contrasted with snippets of her Instagram posts about loving stepmother moments. The difference was stark and undeniable. "Are you sure you want to post this?" I asked, even though I knew the answer. "Mom, she called me a mistake in front of 50,000 people. And now everyone thinks you're a bad mother because of her lies." With steady hands, my 12-year-old daughter uploaded the video that would change everything. The video went viral within hours. Not the slow, steady viral of Valentina's original post, but the explosive kind that breaks the internet. Within the first hour, it had 50,000 views. By morning, it had reached 2 million. The comment section transformed from a shrine to Valentina's supposed sainthood into a battlefield of outrage and support for Brielle. "This child is braver than most adults I know," wrote one commenter. "The way she documented this abuse is incredible. Someone give this girl a journalism award." I shared Valentina's original post praising her. "I feel sick about it now. This little girl deserves better," posted another. The hashtag #Justice for Brielle started trending on Twitter within 6 hours. TikTok creators were making response videos, dissecting every frame of Brielle's evidence. Parenting blogs that had originally featured Valentina as a stepmother role model were frantically deleting their articles and publishing apologies. But the real impact wasn't in the numbers or the trending hashtags. It was in the phone calls that started coming in that very night. The first call was from Marcus, and he was furious. "You need to take that video down immediately. Valentina is getting death threats. People are calling her work, her family, her friends. This has gone too far." "Your wife called our daughter a mistake publicly," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "She exploited Brielle for social media content while treating her like garbage in private. This is the consequence of her actions. She's threatening to leave me if this doesn't stop. She says she can't handle the harassment." Then maybe she shouldn't have harassed a 12-year-old girl. The second call came from my lawyer, who had seen the video shared in a legal professionals Facebook group. "Cass, this changes everything. We need to file for a custody modification immediately. This video is evidence of emotional abuse." The third call was from a producer at a morning news show who wanted to interview Brielle. I declined, but the requests kept coming. Local news stations, podcasts, online magazines. Everyone wanted to hear from the brave girl who had stood up to her stepmother's manipulation. By the end of the week, Valentina had deleted all her social media accounts. Her lifestyle brand partnerships were terminated. The wellness retreat she was scheduled to speak at canceled her appearance. Her Instagram account, which had been her primary source of income, was gone. But the legal ramifications were just beginning. Child Protective Services contacted me after concerned viewers reported the video showing potential emotional abuse. The caseworker who came to our house was professional but thorough, interviewing both Brielle and me separately about the situation. "Your daughter is remarkably articulate about her experiences," the caseworker told me. "She's clearly been processing this situation maturely, but she also shows signs of hypervigilance that concern me. I'm recommending supervised visitation only until we can assess the home environment at her father's house." The custody hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Marcus hired an expensive lawyer who tried to argue that Brielle's videos had been taken out of context, that teenage girls often misinterpret adult conversations, that the whole situation was blown out of proportion by social media mob mentality. But the judge watched every minute of Brielle's compiled video evidence. She also reviewed the original Instagram post and the comments that had praised Valentina for tolerating someone else's mistake. The court finds that the respondent's wife created an emotionally harmful environment for the minor child. The judge ruled, the public humiliation combined with the documented private mistreatment constitutes a pattern of behavior that is not in the child's best interest. Marcus's visitation was reduced to supervised visits only. Valentina was prohibited from posting any content featuring Brielle and was required to complete a course on appropriate step-parent boundaries. The judge also ordered family therapy for Marcus, emphasizing that his failure to protect his daughter from his wife's behavior was a serious concern. The viral video had unexpected consequences beyond our family situation. I started getting messages from other parents who had seen their children exploited by step-parents or former partners for social media content. A family law attorney reached out about starting a support group for parents dealing with similar situations. Within a month, I had launched a blog called Protecting Little Voices, focused on helping parents navigate the intersection of custody issues and social media exploitation. The blog grew quickly, fueled by parents who had been searching for resources to protect their children from being used as content by adults seeking online validation. Brielle started therapy to process the emotional manipulation she'd experienced. Her therapist praised her for having the courage to document her experiences and speak up for herself, but also helped her understand that protecting herself shouldn't have been her responsibility in the first place. "I'm proud of you for being brave," I told her one evening as we sat on her bed, the same spot where she'd first shown me the videos. "But I'm sorry that you had to be brave about something like this. Adults should have protected you." "I know that now," she said. "But I also know that sometimes kids have to protect themselves when adults don't do their job." 6 months later, Marcus and Valentina divorced. The viral video had destroyed not just Valentina's online career, but their marriage. Marcus called to tell me, his voice hollow with regret. "I should have stood up for her," he said. "I should have seen what was happening." "Yes," I agreed. "You should have." The experience taught me that staying silent in the name of keeping the peace can actually enable harm. I had thought I was protecting Brielle by not engaging in public conflict, but my silence had allowed her to suffer alone. Sometimes the most protective thing a parent can do is make noise, cause disruption, and refuse to let harmful behavior continue unchallenged. Brielle learned that her voice matters, that documenting truth is powerful, and that standing up for herself isn't just acceptable, but necessary. She also learned that the adults in her life should be trustworthy enough to handle her truth, even when it's difficult. Today she's 14, confident and unafraid to speak up when something isn't right. She's never posted the follow-up video she recorded, but she knows she could if she needed to. And more importantly, she knows that I would support her if she did. If this story resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Your support helps me continue sharing these important stories about protecting our children and finding our voices when it matters most. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more real stories about family, resilience, and standing up for what's right. And remember, behind every viral moment is a real person with real feelings. Brielle is doing amazing now, but this experience shaped her in ways we're still discovering. Sometimes the internet gets justice right, but it always comes at a cost. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.